into Zionism because it sought to transform a land which was Arab into a Jewish state.
Let's read slower. But he plays cards, reviewing his own debate. And a 6-hour upload. What do I ever have to feel bad about when not a care in the world and a 6-hour upload? Look at me doing all kinds of silly apologizing for my, hour plus, and maybe sometimes 2-hour plus. But anyway, all these just, extremely well-read, but extremely deluded, just on this issue more than any other. And extremely just immoral, walking the line, straddling the line between glorifying the Vicks of the 7th having happened and the Charlie Hebdo stuff. And the more I learn, the more I dislike. But, what was the point of this? I had a point to this, actually. Oh, right. So, this is my solution. It's a one-state solution. Give him back from the river to the sea. Relocate the Jews to Hawaii, like I joked about in that potentially jokey audio from last fall. Relocate the Jews to Hawaii. I don't know what you do with the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians? I don't know what you do with them. But anyway, I don't know what you do with the Jews, I guess. But give them their river to the sea. Give them glory be to Palestine. Give them the caliphate. Not the caliphate. Give them Palestine, but under one condition. They have to admit, and here I mean the Palestinians, all their supporters, the cringy Western supporters, they all just have to admit, if they want from the river to the sea, if they want the whole shebang, their own show, Israelis expelled, they get it, but they have to admit the truth. I almost knocked my phone out of my freaking hand. They have to admit the truth, and that they just really hate Jews. And if it had been their fellow Muslims, their fellow Arabs, they wouldn't have raised as much of a stink. No, the stink was raised because they really, really, really hated that it was the Jews. That's why it was a Nakba. That's why it was a catastrophe. Because they just hate Jews. So, right, give them what they want, but they have to be honest, because they're never honest. They always make it about something else. No, you raised this much of a fuss because it's like you had anal warts because it was the Jews that got their own state in your precious Middle East. So that's all I want from them. Just admit it. Admit the truth. It felt like you had anal warts, Palestinians and many other Arabs who support the Palestinian cause from top to bottom, from the river to the sea. It's just, you just really hate Jews. And just, I'd be made to feel at least a little better if that was just universally recognized and admitted by the side that really hates them. Okay, but I still wouldn't give them the state. I would kind of do a psych. It's like, okay, now that you admitted it, psych, you still don't get the state, but at least I got you on record admitting it. They just drive me up the wall by pretending that it's about something else. So I'm gonna do like a whole video where it's all screeds, or mostly screeds, against nationalists. And I mean modern day nationalists, and especially the ones in America, and maybe the ones that I have a kind of over-representation thing because I just still go on Twitter, but God, nationalists in America, they call themselves patriots, but if it's America first, you're essentially a nationalist. But I never thought I would do this, never really considered myself anti-nationalist, but the nationalists of old seemed to me to be a lot smarter than what I'm seeing right now. It could very well just be the internet, but specifically in my case, Twitter. This making me think that modern day nationalists are just, I don't know, I've never quite seen a moniker where the current crop who call themselves that are just so much dumber. It's not just in America, because I'm to some extent keeping up with this Orban stuff, and the people Anne Applebaum always warns you about. I'm keeping up with them. The thugs, they're really nationalists, but like even the leaders are dumber. The flocks who flock to them are dumber. I have to do a whole video on this, but it's really, in no other case than nationalism does the forest get conflated for the trees, or missed for the trees, or however it's supposed to be said. Man, in nationalism, modern day, more so than before, I kind of thought of nationalism as almost like an intellectual, like a pro-intellectual moniker, because I just watched so many of the classic ones, like mid and latter day 20th century, but it's just never been the case with a moniker where like the IQ has dipped this much with this latest round, and especially since 2016 onward. Very, very, very mouth-breathy kind of group. But yeah, the forest gets missed for the trees, because it's precisely the opposite of how I think of humanity and the whole versus its constituents. It's just humanity is just a lazy way of kind of, we have to, in the interest of time, refer to all people in a very lazy way. And so humanity is just kind of a serviceable word. But humanity doesn't mean anything. Here, the whole just is the sum of its parts. I think some people think of humanity as a kind of whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. It's just so special. The word human is so special. If you're not overtly pro-human, we're going to assume you're anti-human and you want to make humanity suffer. It's like, no, humanity is just a neat word that we can use to refer to this specific group that's more interesting than any other groups because it's the only group whose constituents can, for the most part, think. And so on humanity, it's precisely the opposite of what it is when it comes to nation states and cities, right? So again, to clarify, humanity just is the sum of its parts. There is no greater magical force here. Insofar as it matters, it's because we're referring to, 8 billion plus individuals. There's nothing more to it. But with nation states, it's like traffic lights, right? So nation states are useful to refer to, and they're useful to preserve, I believe, in the way that you want to see the traffic light as useful, right? So it's not that, it just reduces to a bunch of cities. Though I think it's important to pay attention to the cities within a nation state and to keep in mind how truly distinct in a country like America each city is, right? So maybe you can say the nation is more than the sum of its parts because of its utility and its kind of logistical, it's still nation states are still what is logistically necessary to run the world through politics the way it's been going, right? Maybe we can invent some better way to run the world. But right now, the world has to run in large part because of politics, another part because of the economy, which is also very, it's set by politics. No politics, no economy. Okay, debatable, but I'll get back to it later because I'm tangenting from the initial thing. So humanity is not greater than the sum of all humans. It's just about the individuals. Whereas a nation state, you can say, is greater. It's more than merely the sum of its cities, but pay attention to the uniqueness of each city to realize your compatriots. It's probably likely that the average Orban voter, if they actually got to know the typical Trump voter, or sympathizer, and so on and so forth, like they would see that there's far more reason to benefit each other than they do to benefit their kind of mortal foes within their own country. In the case of MAGA, the Dems, like when MAGAs go America first and, we care about our compatriots, like they're caring about, at the expense of like-minded people from across the sea, right? They're caring about the people, some of the people they spew the most vile kind of rhetoric and invective about. But then they turn around, it's like, you hate half the country, MAGA. Don't pretend you don't hate half the country. It's probably likely that half the country hates you almost as much, not as much as you hate based on just the kind of bile you spew, right? But at the same time, it's like you're so much more politically concerned about them qua Americans because you emotionalize it. You call yourself a patriot and you don't see that it's the mentality of a toddler to be that, how did I put it in Some Needs Are Hateful? To not be, what is the term? There's a good term for this. I forget it right now. To fail to be parsimonious with their love. If you love your country, you're failing to be parsimonious. You got to be parsimonious with your love. And patriots, necessarily, if they love their country, they love a legal fiction, so they fail to do that. It's like, why would you want to benefit the Democrats you truly despise? And I've seen my share of MAGA sewer threads. And at the same time, it's like, no, let's not be about any other country except America. But it's like you're failing to see how your regions and cities are really distinct. It seems as if your mortal enemies truly are the Dems. But then you want to benefit those same people at the expense of your fellow, maybe spiritual political animals like the Orban voter and so on and so forth. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying you have to form a country with the Orban people. There's too many logistical issues there as well. unless one of the two groups flies halfway across the world. But it's just interesting that like you would rather see certain things accrue to these Dems that you hate, who you would also empower by that way too. Don't you realize it? When America prospers, it prospers together, and especially given where the tech centers on the coasts are the kind of the heartbeat of the economy. When America prospers and flourishes economically, it's going to accrue to the blue people before it accrues to most of you. It's going to accrue to some of you, but like most of you, the typical people posting on the threads, it's like you want Trump to do well for America. You want him back in the White House so the economy can be hot again. It's arguably decent now, but neither here nor there. You won't accept that. There's been studies that show believability, credulity on the economy. It just comes down to party affiliation. Like if the story is friendly to your party, you'll believe that's the story of the economy. In America, it's been proven by I'll dig up the study. But it's like, realistically, you have to accept that there's more blue people benefited by the economy to the extent that they're more city-oriented, and the cities are, as a few cities, especially in America, are the tech centers and thus the heartbeat of the economy. It's like you want Trump to make the economy live again. It's like you're going to benefit these people. Do you say like you wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire at the expense of maybe your political spiritual animals across the sea? So like you got to just understand, the nation state is not passé. No one should be pro open borders. It's just going to overload the country, right? So nation states are useful the way traffic lights are useful, right? So it's like, I don't love traffic lights, but I'm not a traffic light abolitionist. No one would question me on that. No one would find that suspicious that, well, you don't love the traffic light, so you must be an abolitionist. It's like, no, I recognize its utility and it ends there. In the same kind of way, you ought to be able to recognize the utility of a nation, but then that within a nation, especially as big a nation as America, there's just too much friction for the word to be used, like for America to be used in some kind of normatively preset way that's really positive. Especially when it is America that you yourself believe has the problem of the deep state, unlike any other country. So you're not talking about America as it actually exists. You're talking about America as imagination in your brain, that you think, if you're a fantasist, that it's just a matter of electing one guy and we can recreate it. You're not going to recreate it. You're just not. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth preserving, even in a flawed way, as opposed to a kind of, nation-free world where just everyone gets to roam anywhere they want. That's worse, but it's analogous to how it would be worse to get rid of traffic lights. It doesn't mean you have to pay homage to traffic lights and have commemorations and question people who don't wear pins on their suits where like the traffic light is embedded. All this ceremonial, symbolic, emotional crap. This is not the thinking person's way to have camaraderie with people. This is just the assembly line way to reach camaraderie with people. It's like, and really, if I make these points, it is just assumed I must be some anti-nationalist, or in the worst case, when they're truly clueless, a globalist Marxist. It's like, no, you would get it if we were talking about fucking traffic lights. You would get it. I don't need to say anything gushy about it ever. Maybe I can even sneer at the people. So suppose there were these hypothetical traffic light worshippers because they really appreciated the traffic light utility, and maybe they got stoned and the lights really impressed them because they were stoned. And then they start, doing ceremonial things yearly and putting pins in their ties and all these just gestures that are just, it's the kind of grandstanding that gets called virtue signaling, but no one calls it virtue signaling in these rise for the national anthem customs. It's like rise for the traffic light anthem because the traffic light is really useful. And man, look at all these accidents that don't happen because of traffic lights. It's like, yeah, look at all these hellholes, places in the world that are still not hellholes because we have borders. Yes, that's good. And other kind of logistical benefits. But like, there's no need to pray for it. You know what? I think I'm good. I said I was going to do a whole video on this, but holy hell, I didn't think I'd get into the traffic light thing. I thought I would do some kind of warm up before getting into the traffic light analogy, because I've had the traffic light analogy rumbling around in my mind nonstop. But I just packed almost everything in. I don't think I need to do a whole video on nationalism now. I packed everything into the last audio, so that's good. I did do some anti-nationalist commentary when I was talking about Homeland, the show Homeland, but I don't think I'm going to upload those audios anytime soon. But when you hear those audios, believe you me, that was before this last audio you just heard. But I analyzed Carrie Mathison as a moral agent through her willingness to betray America, in certain seasons, when she believed that doing the morally right thing was absolutely necessary. And then her relationship with Yevgeny, for those of you who have watched the 8th season and how that wrapped up, and how like a nationalist can see and can credit Carrie for her moral performance if they're the type of nationalist who is at least pro maybe an element of the deep state, I guess, known as the national security, all these national security agencies that Carrie did wrong by. Certainly in the late season when she's dodging certain things, Carrie Mathison from Homeland. It's like a nationalist can't see what a beautiful moral person Carrie Mathison is. I did say moral. It's not a simp if I say moral. Carrie Mathison in Homeland has a beautiful moral character, and with all the kinds of adversities that she faces. But it could have gone either way. If you watch that last season the right kind of way, it could have gone either way. And a huge spoiler here, but Carrie Mathison, there's a kind of final scene in Homeland where everything is presented as if Carrie betrayed America. She does live in Russia with Yevgeny, but she's still the spy. And it's revealed in the very last scene with Saul. The viewers are led to believe that she wrote this book. And certainly that's what the world believes. The only person who knows it, arguably the only person, is Saul. That she's not a traitor to America. The only person who knows it is Saul. It's not clear whether he disclosed it to any of his other, deep state, national security agency fellow members, but she wrote that book, Why I Had to Betray My Country, and then Saul's about to read it, and then I think in the leaves, he grabs whatever info she's feeding him from Yevgeny, because she is indeed sabotaging Russia, right? So Carrie didn't really, but it could have gone either way. If you watch season 8 the right way, she could have easily actually done it, which is why season 8 is so fucking fantastic. And the stuff about Max, who was just this background character, but who was just there for Carrie all the way, and then her reaction, and another huge spoiler, but Max was abducted. But Carrie's reaction when she sees that they killed Max, she was gonna go guns blazing, but she didn't. God, these audios are even better than the previous ones where I talk about Carrie Mathison and this nationalist. Like I'm actually doing it better now, but I'll still upload those audios at some point. But they didn't do much to help her fellow compatriots. Back home, she was in there alone, searching after him, in part because he had that thing that could prove that the way the helicopter crashed, where the president died, it was an accident. So in part she was vehemently searching after Max to retrieve that, whatever that was called, some kind of a box, the recording box. But in another sense, and especially once she saw him die, she realized how much Max cared for her. And this also ties into, which way she was going to tilt in terms of, before it was clear that, she did not betray her country. But the whole world, as the show ends, the whole world believes Carrie betrayed her country. That was the only way she could be a spy and pull it off, with Saul being the only one who knew. But suppose she did betray her country. It would have been because she forged this relationship with Yevgeny, and Yevgeny didn't do wrong by her. Certainly by the 8th season, Yevgeny didn't do wrong by her. And so she would have had that kind of obligation to him that might trump a kind of nationalist loyalty obligation. And that's something nationalists and, patriots need to think about. You love your country so much. Okay, it's more than a traffic light to you. I'm saying it's just a traffic light. Just throwing it in there again. It's not a hellhole. America is not a hellhole yet because it still has a semblance of a border. If it lost even that semblance of a border, it would become a hellhole. Those people calling it a hellhole right now don't know real hellholes. But to all you nationalists who want to say the nation state is more than all the cities, or it's, you know, it's worthy of being loved. It is more than the cities, but it's also worthy of your love and ceremonial stuff that we should just, as, you know, kind of based adults, just laugh at. Rise for the national anthem. You know, you're kind of like the people who want to say humanity is more than the sum of its parts. It's individual humans. Okay, you want to say that? But you tell me, you know, a person to serve, morally speaking, to serve what is morally, objectively right in terms of their obligations to other individuals who've done right by them, if that necessitates betraying your country. No, you'd have to be a scumbag to betray an individual in this kind of semi-professional way. You're like, you're doing something professionally, but at the same time, you forge a bond with a person who is not your compatriot. And now it's like you either betray them or you betray the country. Like if that person is truly an outstanding person who's done right by you, and your country's kind of up to some hijinks because it has a deep state, well then, how about this? At least MAGAs can give me this, right? Maybe you shouldn't be so pro-America until America gets rid of its deep state. And someone who betrays it because they care about this other individual, not a legal fiction, but another actual individual. How can you condemn that? But as a blockhead nationalist, you surely would condemn that. And that's why you suck. All right, so I snuck into Homeland stuff, good. But yeah, those Homeland audios to come as well. I talk about the show a lot. I'm obsessed with the show. It's like the 2010s, it was like Homeland, Bates Motel, and Breaking Bad. All other shows had one too many flaws, but yeah, I'm saying those three. And I'm going to talk about the other two as well at some point. It's like from start to finish, not a single bad episode. That's a show. From start to finish, not a single bad episode. It doesn't have to be great all throughout, but it's like I can't think of many other shows where it's like not a single, even mediocre episode. But yeah, if you haven't watched Homeland, watch Homeland and just notice how many scenes there are, how many scenarios there are where the plot is like, is Carrie going to do right by this individual, or is she going to do right by her job and by extension, her country? Vast majority of cases, you ought to do right by the individual. Although, you know, if your country is going to full-on plummet as a result, which is always hyperbole, the country never plummets because some secret is revealed. You know, Carrie working for the CIA, right? That was, I should have specified the CIA. But yeah, Carrie often did right by the individuals, and I would say to her credit. But how does the nationalist justify that? The nationalist can't justify that. Certainly not the ultra-nationalist blockheads of today. And also, why are there so many different terms here? Like, you know, distinction without a difference type terms. Right, you got patriot and nationalist. I guess there's, you know, some dissimilarity between a patriot and a nationalist, but not much. Not when it comes to the mentality. But also, you know, hinges on what type of nationalist, civic or ultra. But then you got some of these other terms like jingoist, right? Usually kind of, you could just say militarism, so a militaristic nationalist, but there's, you know, jingoist and some of this other excess of isms around this discourse that I really dislike. So that's also kind of why I'm at my wit's end when it comes to nationalism. Jingoism, it's just so stupid. Never say jingoism.
Is lost, just like in the case of the MAGAs. If this thing...
Oh God, I did some of this last summer. I did some of this in My Views Don't Count. But My Views Don't Count have so many other things in it that I forgot. I went on a whole anti-nationalist tear, even here, though I didn't call it anti-nationalism, but I might as well have. Listen.
You call America...
This thing you call
lost,
America...
just like in the case of the MAGAs.
This thing you
call America... that you know is a Rorschach test. We see all the different ways. People can tell long stories about what America is really about. Long, mutually exclusive stories about...
And they still don't count.
And not just mutually exclusive, but truly contradictory.
But yeah, I went off on Sunni Shia stuff right before, so that's why that's the visual. God, I was lazier, but specifically in this video, but I was lazier with the visuals. and I had more time, but I didn't even know it.
You can spin a long narrative, you can find enough facts to support it,
Yep.
and yet it'll contradict a wholly different.
It's a prescient video. This was just a couple of months before the 7th, and the VIX of the 7th, and all the non-stop reverberations. Non-stop reverberations. This was just... Yeah, I even mentioned the Israelis and Palestinians, and I almost never mentioned them, and then I mentioned them just at the dawn of the kind of the worst thing. Very near the most evil day in history. Not in history, but certainly in the year. I'm guessing this now means ex-soldier speaks out on war in Gaza, Israeli. 1.25 here, just want to make a couple of points.
After the 7th, for example, people saw those videos of those people being paraded through the streets around Gaza, right? And those people cheer or even take part in whatever it is. So they say, like, all of them are part of it.
I guess maybe he's still a current soldier because he didn't identify. I would have identified myself. I don't care. Come what may.
Like, they all support it.
Was that quite a widespread view that everyone in Gaza is complicit?
Very much so. For many of the people around me, that was the thing. It came from saying, you know, those are the kids that we spared in the war.
How do I reach these kids?
Or in 2014, right? Those are the kids that we spared then are now the terrorists that did the 7th, right?
So the implication there being, if you kill a kid now, it's okay.
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah, so saying the quiet part out loud. And so because earlier I did the whole psych thing with they need to admit they hate the Jews. And this whole operation, I think I would also feel a lot better if it was just admitted in the same kind of way. I'm just tired of all these, we have a lot of defensible positions, but then we have one really indefensible position. And we're all going to just kind of in a communal quietist way not say the quiet part out loud. But this guy is saying the quiet part out loud. And I guess that's why he's shaded and anonymous.
That was, I don't want to say the majority, but it was alarmingly widespread in the people around me talking about this.
Thousands of Palestinian civilians have been killed in Israel's assault in Gaza. The military insists it does everything possible to avoid casualties and blames Hamas.
So it's collective punishment, but not in that kind of retro Abrahamic way. It's collective punishment along the lines of kind of consequentialist reasoning, I guess, in the best case scenario, if I were to, I guess, steelman it. Tough call, but I would withdraw. I would do what that troop did and hopefully have the courage to speak out about it and diagnose it. But it is a tough call, right? He saw the 2014 war and I didn't, so I guess he saw things that I didn't.
The military insists it does everything possible to avoid casualties and blames Hamas for hiding amongst the population. But footage like this, obtained by Al Jazeera, documents how apparently unarmed Palestinians have at times been deliberately hunted down. The Israeli army has said it's investigating this incident, but that it occurred in an active combat zone where Hamas fighters often dressed in civilian clothing.
I mean, it is I've said it before at some point, I think on a community post, but it's the toughest geopolitical come moral dilemma of the century. I don't think anything's going to top this. It's just a moral dilemma involving geopolitics. You do have a lot of people who despise you as a Jew. You're just a kind of typical average Jew. But the only way to do something about it is to commit war crimes, right? When's the last time we had it at this scale? Where there's enough evidence that enough of them do, right?
When Jake was serving...
Enough of them, I guess I just wanted to change the background of the screen. They did a lot of them did celebrate, right? But at the same time, the only way to do something about it, because of the way Hamas structured it, right, is to walk into the very PR trap, the very kind of Hamas-led PR trap that they've walked into. And if not that, there's just nothing else you can really do about it. Aside from maybe get, the international community to, through condemnation, get Hamas to release the hostages. So it's such a do or die thing, or it's such a catch-22 thing. I can't recall the last time at this scale we've seen it on the geopolitical level.
He says it was clear they required special permission to fire on buildings such as schools.
But despite that, I wouldn't partake in it. If I were Jew, if I were a troop, I would resign.
Schools or mosques. But overall, the prospect...
If I were a troop, I'd have other problems. The fact that I would have come to a spot where I even became a troop, that would be my actual problem. Not, the Palestinians hate me and want to kill me. No. Then I would have other problems in the sense of, well, why the fuck did I even become a troop?
of wrongly killing civilians was not a major concern.
No one is batting an eye. No one is questioning. It's like, it's a given that if someone is in this area that we are in because everyone was supposed to be evacuated, if someone is there, they are Hamas.
On multiple occasions, fleeing Palestinian civilians have been filmed being shot, apparently by...
Yeah, it's just, even if it's a group, you know, let's say a large group, a group of 50, and I have evidence that 40 of them are not even Hamas, but sympathize with Hamas. But then I have no idea what the other 10 of them believe. I have no idea, right? So am I gonna, through conjecture? See, I just wouldn't be able to do it. I just wouldn't be able to pull the trigger or push the button to blow those people up. I guess that's what people call masochism, right? In this other sense, right? But I just call it, you know, a moral reservation. I have moral reservations, but in a hot war like this, it just gets decoded as masochism, because I'm not willing to kill them as a group before they kill me as part of some other group. I'm just really glad I'm neither Jew nor Arab right now. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just glad I'm neither, because it's just a bunch of tough calls there. But yes, they should release the damn hostages. I guess, you know, if I say it too, then I'm gonna feel a little better about not having real answers. So I'll just say they should release the hostages. But suppose Hamas said they will release the hostages insofar as Israel retreats ASAP, and then they'll do it. Do you think Israel would retreat then? Right, so they say, we promise, we pinky swear we'll release the hostages, but first you guys gotta leave and sign a bunch of documents that said you'll never invade again, and maybe take back some of that. We get to take back some of that West Bank stuff that you guys have been expanding, the encampments, what are they called? Like, would Israel retreat then? It's like Hamas pinky swears they'll release the hostages, but first you got to retreat. Would they? I don't think they would.
On multiple occasions, fleeing Palestinian civilians have been filmed being shot, apparently by Israeli soldiers.
As happens.
Here, a grandmother is gunned down next to a child waving a white flag.
It's war.
The army says it's examining the incident. 3 Israeli hostages have also been mistakenly shot dead by troops.
Now, the fact that there hasn't been more outrage as it relates to stuff like that, the hostages, I don't know. I guess war really is the mind killer. What was the old less wrong post? Politics is the mind killer? Yeah, to some extent, but really wartime is the even bigger mind killer.
Were there times when
The mind virus.
subsequently it became clear that they were civilians, or weren't armed at least?
There was a guy holding something white or having a white t-shirt that was like, what's going on the radio? And he was approaching one of the places where one of the units was. And then the soldiers starts yelling, like in Arabic, like, stop, or I will shoot you. And then the person starts running away. And then...
Never run away from a cop or a troop, I guess.
He shoot them and kill them. And then you ask yourself, like, did we just kill someone who was just, you know, was just trapped in the situation?
Were others soldiers
Yeah, their parents should have trained them not to run away from Israeli troops during wartime.
around you? Were they worried by what happened? Troubled by it?
Not really. I don't remember anyone talking about that. I think the thing here is they need to prove that they are not the enemy. The ground assumption is that they are Hamas. And then if you go this way, you are bound to kill people that are not, right?
Israeli soldiers have been documenting the war in Gaza themselves on TikTok and Instagram. Some videos show soldiers trashing Palestinian homes.
Yikes.
Others celebrate or mock the massive level of destruction. The army has said it will punish those breaching rules on conduct. The military has ordered the levelling of official buildings and individual homes across Gaza. Part of efforts, it says, to dismantle Hamas's extensive tunnel network and infrastructure, but the scenes are often glorified by soldiers online. Was that a common attitude?
And you have to respect troops, by the way. Troops who kind of... The reason there's troops on the other side, it's because of the same mentality. But you got to respect them, because those troops on the other side would hurt you if it weren't for the troops on your side. So you got to respect them, even though the mentality is the common denominator as to why there's a threat in the first place. So you got to respect those troops who glorify stuff like that and ransack homes and do stuff that has nothing to do with the mission because they're just having fun. They're with their bros. So you got to respect it. If you don't respect it, you're a bunch of bad things, including anti-Semitic in the case of the Israeli war.
For sure, like celebrate.
All right, I'm making this video too long. I've done enough damage.
Oh no, but I guess it's not done yet. Just to bottom line it, I found a way to summarize. You know how often I just throw in the audios where I say, oh, I found a way to summarize. And then I don't keep it short, but this one I think I'll keep short. I found a way to bottom line through one sentence, in a short sentence, my opposition to nationalism. And I've never considered myself an anti-nationalist, but nationalists are so stupid today, and just so failing to see what qualifies as credible versus non-credible brinkmanship. You know, they're kind of always rhetorically worried about brinkmanship, but they so often misidentify the actual brinkmanship and fall for some facade of it. But to with one sentence, because I have to keep it short, because this is just, oh God, I think it's still going to be, I think it's going to be the next video. I just yesterday, God, I got so many other projects, but just yesterday I finally got rid of natalism as collective FOMO. And now I'm like, oh, I'm free to now do this other thing before I eventually do the shop chapter. But it's like, no, because I'm going to do this. But just to finish this, because this is going to be the end of this. This is going to be a short one. Because then I got another one, and then I get to the shop chapter. I can't wait to read The Life of the Species and On the Assertion of the Will to Live, the 1-2 punch. Oh, I can't wait to read that out, to finally get that video out of the way as well. But that's now 3 videos away, because I just did this nationalist thing that can't fit anywhere else. It has to be its own thing. But to finish the nationalist thing, me talking at MAGA, I just recorded it and I just titled all the segments. What are some of the segments? I think I'm good. Getting the insults out of the way first. Oh fuck, the way this video starts. I just insult these poor people who it's not their fault, they're stupid, but I'm just insulting them at the very beginning of this audio. Nations as traffic lights. I've never done that. I've never closed out a video shortly after I've recorded all of its parts and titled the segments. I've never closed out a video by reading all the segments. Oh, but I gotta do the stupid Jeopardy asymmetry first, don't I? Before I even... No, maybe not. Anyway, to bottom line with one sentence, my opposition to nationalism and why, for the first time in my life, I'm considering identifying as an anti-nationalist. It feels right. I can't identify as anything else. Their stupidity has moved me. To bottom line with one fairly short sentence, my opposition to nationalism is anti-characterological. And we should never back things that are anti-characterological. It has to be, because it tells you through a political assembly line who you should care for. At least in terms of who you should care for when there's a policy being designed. In other areas of life, maybe a nationalist can care for non-compatriots. No matter how far apart they are. But nationalism is anti-characterological in the sense that all the policy implications, they have to revolve around this. I should, through some sort of civic pride, I should feel more concern for my compatriots. But then it's just anti-characterological. You can see it from every single angle. Like the Canadians on the coast here have far more in common with the average person in Seattle. Why should the people in Seattle think themselves as being inherently politically bounded by their obligations to people in Louisville? Just as why should I care about some newfie more than I care about some person who probably at the policy level has more in common with me, who just lives across the border in Seattle? We can be politically characterological to some extent. We ought to be politically characterological, even in political contexts. You got to sniff out. Even if it's a non-compatriot, if they're just that much of a better person than some group of compatriots, okay, be disloyal, but serve, benefit those who do right by you, even if it crosses national boundaries. But still maintain a nation state, because as with traffic lights, you don't want accidents. But yes, I guess this wasn't a short sentence. I'm just wired. But yes, so to bottom line, it's anti-characterological. No nationalist has a valid response to this. Because the moment you put that much emphasis on the nation state and say nation states should exert normative pressure on the world, they exert so much normative pressure on the world. Why are the Jews and Muslims going at it with more ferocity than ever, really? Arabs and Jews, whatever. Why are they going at it? Because nation states exert way too much normative pressure on the world and on man's noggin. Why is Russia still doing this? Why is Russia still terrorizing Ukraine? Nation states, in their minds, exert way too much pressure on the world. This is not a mutual condemnation. This is just saying, you know, if maybe one side, like clearly one side is to be condemned here, but like nation states exert so much normative pressure on the world. Look at how much self-sacrifice Ukrainians are kind of as a group administering on themselves. Nation states just matter that much, but I think it's too much. There's no answer. There's no valid answer to the fact that it is anti-characterological.
In other words, as
He's the
Norman
more
explained,
tonally rational one. Not so much on the substance, but tonally he's the better one.
a Jewish state.
I mean, I'd love to psych them out like that, by the way. I'd love it because they're so deluded. They really think they've got a snowball's chance in hell of reclaiming every inch of it, or, you know, enough of it to warrant all the antics. And again, the worst of it, this is really why I have such contempt for the Western clowns who agitate for it. You're not doing the Palestinians any favors. You're just giving them false hope. And that's okay with you because you don't really give a shit about them. This is about your posturing and grandstanding. I've done so much in the way of screenshots of stupid things and little clips of the protesters. I just don't know where to squeeze it in. But yeah, you're just giving them false hope. They're not going to get it. If anyone thinks there's a snowball's chance in hell, I mean, I'm not a betting type usually, but I'll bet good money on this. Whatever it is, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I guarantee you, Israel will be standing. To the extent that, you know, the whole world's not going to go kablamo, Israel will be standing. Let's put it this way. Israel will not go out of existence in any kind of diplomatic way or war come diplomatic way. No, Israel will win the wars. So this is just counterproductive, raising hopes, giving people hopes. All these romantic protests is some of the most romantic protesting I've ever seen. The chance and it's not even, people are upset because it's intimidation, it's threatening, blah blah blah. I don't care about any of that. I just see a bunch of deluded people giving a bunch of other deluded people false hope that they will be a river, that there will be from the river to the sea. I am willing to bet to anyone who thinks Israel's about to fall or maybe fall in a few years, whatever the timeline is. I'm willing to bet good money, whatever, 10 grand, Israel will be standing. And if it's not standing, it's not going to be because of the Palestinians. It's going to be something else that's going to do it in. And so, yes, whatever the timeline is, I'm open to a bet. We'd have to do it formally, but yeah, like I'm willing to go up to 10 grand. Israel will be standing. If there's going to be a solution, if they're going to get some piece of land, it's going to have to be diplomatically. Ambassadors are going to have to be good at being ambassadors again. Remember ambassadors? When's the last time someone was impressed by an ambassador doing the right thing in terms of ending war? We haven't seen that in a good long while. Anyway, I'm serious about the bet. If any takers, we can make it formal. We can do a contract. Oh, and Iran. I prefer Iran. Just don't think I'm saying that I went running. Iran as in Iran. God, in terms of nationalism and nationalism gone wrong, God, it's really now all about Iran. But you know what? In their case, it may be a theocracy thing more so than a nationalism thing. In a weird kind of ethnicity come religiosity kind of thing. But yeah, Iran is probably the most fucked up nation of all, but probably because of its theocratic components, not so much what I've been criticizing in this video, and now it's over.